There's some goodies in here apparently. Oh, wow. There's a Harley Davidson bag inside of my India motorcycle. All right, starting off here at the front of the bike, we have a lot going on. We got this windshield that probably will be taken off the bike. I'm not a really big windshield guy, but of course it appears to be that it, deflects a lot of the wind. But under here we have the Indian Chief style headlight, and it is barely hanging on by a thread as is. These two bolts right here is what hold this in here, but I can see clearly that's broken right there. So this probably, nothing's holding this but the wiring harness more than likely, but that is definitely even though it still works, it is definitely a replacement. Signal lights on both sides replaced. On the front of this bike, also you can see how we have these closeout pieces. On the front of this Chief right here, we don't have those closeout pieces. These are like kind of to hide a lot of the wiring. It was a specific thing on the Super Chief, and also you can see these fork covers as well are dented. Fender, definitely not salvageable. You can see the lower parts of the outer forks. These appear to be in better shape than I originally looked at. Even though this is bent, I may be able to take these and have them sanded down and repaint it, as long as there's no warping or mechanical damage to them. The left side as well looks to be a lot better than I anticipated. But the forks are completely bent, which means that there's going to be a need for an entirely new inner fork, and also these cover pieces. And just to compare over here, you can see what I mean. This bike has essentially the same thing. That inner piece is just completely bent. But on this fork right here, compared to the other one, you can see that piece is completely snapped off. So that's going to have to be replaced. I think it's safe to say that the entire front end of this bike will also need to be replaced, but that's not something that I didn't plan for, but yeah, it's gonna have to be replaced. The big thing that's a real problem is that this tire is pushed into the frame, and it's also pushed into the rectifier, the starter, and also the oil filter, which is why we have that oil leak right there at the bottom. Moving around to this side, you get a better look at that. Right in there, that's the starter motor. That's not to say that the bike won't start, but it's definitely pushing against those cables, and also that oil filter right there in the middle. Now the problem is that even though the suspension's done, there's absolutely no ability to move this bike at all. Yeah, it's not moving at all. As you can imagine, having that front wheel not being able to move, that made it difficult when I had the bike delivered to try to get it in here. Because, if the front wheel doesn't turn, you either have to pick it up or try to jack it up, and trying to get this off of a trailer, basically we end up having to jack the front wheel up and try to support it. And luckily we were able to get the bike in neutral and roll the bike in, but it was definitely a challenge. Moving to the top of the bike, missing the mirror right here. More than likely I was going to replace these mirrors anyway. The brake lever looks good. The grip right there looks good. This entire cluster looks okay. Master cylinder looks okay. On this side we're missing the brake lever end. These are designed to break away. Actually, I'm not too worried about this. I have a spare one of these, but glad this is okay, because this is a $300 piece. So, this grip is also chewed up if I decide to replace the grips. Not that big of a deal. The handlebars appear to be still true and not completely bent. We'll have to find out whether or not that's true later. This cluster still looks okay. This front piece of this cover is $100. The one on the back is over $100. And the individual switches in the middle of this, like the actual electronic piece, that's like $300. So luckily these are not scuffed up. Moving down to the rod command, this is a $700 piece by itself, plus a $25 bracket it sits in, plus another several $100 metal piece that it sits in. All of this appears to be okay. And also the bike does turn on. That is because we've already taken the seat off. We were able to plug the battery back up, or rather we had to replace the battery with a spare, because the battery that we pulled out, it is broken. So we need a new battery. When we first powered on the bike, we were welcomed to seeing that the bike only has 556 miles on it. So this bike
is barely past its break-in period, even though it's broken in an entirely different way that I'm sure no one intended, but it's practically a brand new bike.
Moving back to the saddlebags, this is a key part of this bike being called the Super Chief Limited because it comes with saddlebags, it comes with the chrome, the floorboards. Yeah, these bags are scuffed up on the sides. The leather is scuffed up on the side, but this plastic is still intact on the inside. It's also scuffed up on the rear. I don't see myself replacing this bag versus getting it repaired because these bags are expensive. Looking inside the bag, there's some goodies in here apparently. Wow, there's a Harley Davidson bag inside of my India motorcycle.
When you're buying wrecked motorcycles, there's always a surprise. I promise you, I didn't put that there.
What else we got? We got owner's manual. Looks like some spanner wrenches for the suspension. And also, what else we got? Yeah, some more Harley Davidson stuff. So somebody wore a 4XL. Interesting. The other bag looks a lot better. There's nothing in here. Definitely dusty. Checking out the rear end of the bike. Again, 556 miles. This is a brand new tire. The rear wheel, the belt appears to be okay. The fender's okay. The turn signals are okay. The license plate bracket is okay. Everything in the rear end looks to be okay. We also have the stock passenger seat. Everything looks okay with that. Then we move over to here. Of course, this seat is torn. That can be reupholstered. I love these pieces on the side that cover up the suspension. Being that there's really nothing that happened to the suspension, I have no reason to believe that or at least nothing happened to the rear end other than the scuffs on the bags. I have no reason to believe that these shocks in the back are going to be messed up. If they are, we know how to fix those and replace them. Coming to this side of the bike, that beautiful 116 Thunderstroke. God, this motor is just absolutely stunning. Floorboard on the right side is missing the pad. Not a big deal. I think you can buy the pad separately. If that's the case, we don't have to replace the full floorboard. We just get the pad and that's done. Moving back around to the left side, we didn't get so lucky. This one's definitely destroyed. It has to be replaced. But the good thing is, and also this one has the heel toe shifter. The good thing is that floorboard was sacrificed. So the primary cover, the 116 cover, the tank, basically when this bike fell over, it didn't scratch up anything else. So basically it seems like everything back is completely fine. Like this tank, there's not a single scratch or dent. I'm sure there's probably scratches, but there's not a single dent on this tank compared to the tanks that we had before on the Chief we've already rebuilt, man. It was like a crater-sized dent in the tank, and this one has virtually nothing. There's no dents here. There's no dents on the other side. This tank is immaculate.
And even if the tank was dented, we know how to get that fixed and get it painted. So even if it was dented, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But it's good to know that it's not dented, so we don't have to get that work done.
Looking at this now, we get a better look at this upper triple tree. It actually looks okay. The risers look okay. These handlebars, it appears that maybe during the accident, they were, once the bike was, the front suspension is bent, that means these handlebars aren't going to be straight anymore because the bike, rather than the wheels sitting like this and the handlebars sitting back more, they're kind of cocked forward, so that kind of makes sense why those handlebars look the way that they do.
So here's where it gets kind of ugly. So like I said before, mostly the bike is okay outside of the front suspension, and everything from the motor back seems to be okay. But I didn't mention anything between the front suspension and the motor. Check this out.
So from my initial inspection, I started looking, and then I saw that we had some scuffs right here around the neck of the frame. And on the other side, we have the exact same thing. Some nicks right here on the frame. right there. And also if we go lower, you probably can't see it, but there's a few little rust cracks or hairline lines where I can see rust right there as well.
So now that we've seen that, what does that mean for the frame? Is it a total loss, or should we junk it? Is this bike going to be able to be rebuilt? Absolutely, because at the end of the day, this bike is salvaged, which means that we can still have it rebuilt. Now, if this was a parts-only bike, then we can't do anything about it. But worst case scenario, I strip the bike down to the frame, have it sandblasted, and I see those little lines. We get a better look once there's no paint on it, because it could be that when the bike when the bike had impact, it's just the stress of the impact kind of put those hairline cracks in there. And it may not even be a crack. It could just be that it chipped the paint and begin to start to crack the frame. But that crack does not go all the way around the neck of the frame. That frame isn't fully snapped off. And to me, that's most important. And also even more importantly, we have to figure out whether or not the alignment of the bike is off. And if it's not from the frame, then we just put some dime wells on it and it's done. But either way it goes, I'm not afraid of it. We're gonna figure it out either way it goes. Now, what this does prove with wrecked bikes is that you simply do not know everything that's wrong with these bikes, because when you buy these bikes, or at least in my case, I see them out online. I go off of the pictures that are there and also what I previously experienced with the one that I had. Now that I know that if I do this again, I can look around the neck or try to get more close up on the neck and the rest of the part of the bike to determine whether or not the frame is damaged. Because the big thing about these bikes, I feel like, is that the necks of these bikes are very strong based on how they're designed. So in most cases, the necks aren't gonna just snap off of these. So it's good to see that even though the neck of this bike has been compromised, it's not just straight up snapped off. Because if it's snapped off, that is an entirely different can of worms. For those of you that are curious about buying a wrecked bike, this is the thing that you cannot see just from the pictures when you going out to buy these bikes from internet auctions. You have to physically go see these bikes for the best scenario of trying to figure out what's wrong with it. But in my case, I buy them online. I don't have time to travel to these different states far away from me to go look at a possible bike. So I'm taking the risk when I do this. And like I said, either way it goes, we're gonna figure it out. But it is a lesson learned for those of you that are curious about this entire process.
I don't have reasons to believe that the starter motor is gonna be that big of a deal. It seems that it may be okay. Everything looks to be probably in alignment. The one thing I am worried about is that oil filter. Hopefully the threads that it screws onto into the engine case is not gonna be compromised. But if it is, again, we will figure that out as we get to it.
I'm just practicing. Oh man, 556 miles. Absolutely crazy. So we got broken suspension, broken headlights, signal lights, rims, oil filter on the engine casing, brake levers, mirrors, the freaking frame, saddlebags. There's a lot going on with this bike, but we're gonna figure it out. And it's gonna be a fun time, and we're all gonna learn about this bike even more. So if you wanna get in, again, to win my Indian Chief that's already rebuilt and is certified and legal to ride on the street, finally, you can head over to Bicasso.com by clicking this little tab right here on the screen. It'll take you right to the website. And also, if you wanna catch up on the other Indian Chief that we're rebuilding, also the green one, you can click right here and catch up on this damage assessment just like we did this Super Chief. But as always, thanks for listening to my story. Thanks for supporting these series and learning with me. And as always, if you're subscribed, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.